In the dead of a relentless storm, our vessel's engine died, casting us adrift in a cursed, roiling sea. In that fateful night, the ocean transformed into a living nightmare, its furious waves echoing with ghostly whispers and the lament of lost souls. For 70 hours, we were trapped in the heart of the maelstrom, where ancient forces stirred and terror reigned. This is the story of that cursed night, the day we faced the maelstrom's curse. We had set sail under a slate-gray sky, our vessel slicing through the gentle swells like a blade through silk. The weather was fair, and the promise of a smooth journey filled our hearts with cautious optimism. But by the third day, as we crept farther from familiar shores, the heavens began to darken with a malevolent intensity. Rumors of a gathering tempest circulated among the crew, whispers of a storm that was not of this world. Then, without warning, the fury of nature broke loose. The sea transformed into a churning, chaotic beast. Waves, towering, relentless, and cruel, crashed upon the ship's hull, shaking her timbers as if testing her resolve. The wind howled like a chorus of damned souls, and lightning etched terrible, momentary patterns across the night sky. In that furious maelstrom, every man on board felt the icy grip of fear clutching at his heart. It was during this savage onslaught that our vessel's engine, the heart of nightfall's reckoning, sputtered, coughed, and finally fell silent. In an instant, we were left adrift in a roiling, merciless sea. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into near-total darkness except for the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the horror around us. There was no power, no escape, only the endless, all-consuming storm. I remember the chaos vividly, crew members scrambling to secure loose cargo, the sound of shouts and prayers merging with the clamor of the tempest. I could feel the chill of despair as we realized that we were entirely at the mercy of the ocean. In that moment, the sea was no longer a vast, indifferent expanse. It was a living, malevolent force intent on swallowing us whole. For 70 excruciating hours, time itself seemed to warp. The relentless storm, which had begun as a fury of nature, gradually assumed a more sinister guise. It was as though the ocean had become cursed, haunted by something unseen and unspeakable. The hours bled into one another in a disjointed blur of terror and agony. As we drifted in our powerless vessel, the ocean revealed its true nature. At first, it was the sound, a cacophony of howling wind, creaking metal, and the unending roar of the waves. But then, amid that din, I began to hear something else, a series of soft, almost imperceptible murmurs that did not belong to the storm. They were like faint echoes, drifting atop the crashing waves, a chorus of voices too low and too distant to discern clearly. At first, I dismissed them as tricks of the mind, hallucinations born of stress and fear. But as the hours ticked by, the voices grew bolder, more insistent. It started with a single mournful wail, carried on the wind and blending with the storm's fury. Then, as if in a macabre dance, ghostly apparitions began to appear on the horizon. At times, they were nothing more than fleeting silhouettes, vague, ethereal shapes illuminated by flashes of lightning. Other times, they coalesced into more distinct forms, faces twisted in eternal agony, arms outstretched in silent supplication, bodies contorted by anguish. It was as if the very ocean was haunted by the restless dead, their spectral visages forever trapped in a cycle of torment. One night, or what passed for night in that never-ending storm, I found myself unable to sleep. I sat huddled in a corner of the ship's cold, damp hold, my eyes fixed on the turbulent waves outside. There, in the midst of the chaos, I saw them clearly. Phantom figures dancing upon the crests of the monstrous waves, their forms barely tangible, yet unmistakably human. They moved with a strange, graceful rhythm, as if performing a ritualistic lament for the lost souls of the deep. Every flash of lightning revealed more of their mournful expressions, eyes filled with sorrow, mouths agape in silent screams. I could not tell if they were real or if my mind, frayed by terror, was conjuring these horrific visions. Yet deep down, I knew that something was terribly, undeniably wrong. The sea was no longer just water and wind. It had become a stage for a horror that defied logic and reason. It was during the peak of our torment, when hope seemed all but extinguished, that the true horror of the maelstrom revealed itself. The storm had been raging for days, and we had drifted aimlessly, the world around us reduced to an endless canvas of churning water and darkness. In that oppressive void, the ghostly apparitions had become our constant companions, silent, spectral witnesses to our impending doom. Then on the 71st hour, amidst the ceaseless howling of the wind, something extraordinary and utterly terrifying occurred. In the distance, where the furious sea met the stormy sky, I saw a glimmer, a spark of unnatural light that seemed to defy the very darkness. At first, I thought it was merely another flash of lightning, a brief interruption in the gloom. But then, slowly and inexorably, a shape began to form. I squinted against the driving rain and lashing wind, my heart pounding in my chest as I strained to see. There, emerging from the chaotic vortex of water and foam, was a spectral figure unlike any I had ever witnessed. Its form was indistinct at first, a mere wisp of smoke or a trick of the light. But as it drew nearer, it solidified into something horrifyingly real. This was no mere ghostly apparition. It was an entity, a living embodiment of the curse that plagued the Maelstrom. Its eyes burned with a malevolent fire, glowing with an intensity that belied its ethereal nature. The figure stood tall and imposing, its features blurred by the storm yet unmistakably sinister. I could feel its gaze piercing through me, a weight of ancient malice that chilled me to the very core of my being. Time seemed to freeze as the spectral figure approached our battered vessel. The wind howled louder as if protesting its intrusion, and the waves seemed to recoil in terror. For a long, agonizing moment, I was paralyzed, captivated by the sight of that unholy visage. Then, as if acknowledging our collective dread, it spoke. Not in words, but in a deep, resonant vibration that echoed in my mind, a sound that was both a warning and a curse. In that moment, every instinct in me screamed to run, to escape the clutches of this ancient, unfathomable horror. Yet I could do nothing but stare, transfixed by the terrible beauty of its presence. The spectral figure hovered over the tumultuous sea, its form slowly dissolving into the maelstrom, leaving behind a trail of malevolent energy that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of our despair. The crew, huddled in terror within the ship, could only watch in silent horror as the figure vanished into the depths. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, a change began to sweep over the ocean. The storm's ferocity seemed to intensify, and the ghostly apparitions, those mournful, tormented souls, multiplied, their wails rising in a cacophony that drowned out even the howling wind. It was as if the spectral figure had been the catalyst for a deeper, more insidious curse, a curse that transformed the sea into a living nightmare. For the remaining hours of that accursed ordeal, we were trapped in a limbo of terror and despair. The ship, our once mighty vessel, was now a fragile raft caught in the grip of a cursed ocean. Each wave that battered us, each gust of wind that tore through the broken corridors, carried with it the echoes of ancient sorrows and lost souls. We were not merely adrift, we were prisoners of the maelstrom, caught in a relentless cycle of horror from which there was no escape. I recall the faces of my fellow crew members, their expressions etched with the raw terror of the unknown. In the flickering, intermittent light of our failing emergency lamps, I saw eyes wide with disbelief, mouths agape in silent screams. Some prayed fervently, while others simply sat in numb resignation, their hearts heavy with the weight of inevitable doom. Throughout those 70 hours, my own mind was tormented by visions of the spectral figure. I saw it in every shadow, in every swirl of foam and spray. It haunted my waking moments and intruded upon my dreams, a relentless reminder that the curse of the maelstrom was far from over. I began to wonder if that figure was not a single entity, but rather a manifestation of the ocean's collective grief, a cursed spirit born from the countless souls lost to its depths. When at last the storm began to subside and dawn broke through the gloom, we found ourselves marooned in a surreal, apocalyptic calm. The sea, still roiling with residual fury, had cast us onto a tangle of wreckage and broken dreams. The spectral apparitions had vanished, but the memory of their mournful wails and the burning gaze of the ghostly figure lingered in our minds like a festering wound. We were rescued by a passing freighter, but even as we stepped aboard, the horrors of those 70 cursed hours refused to let go. I spent sleepless nights haunted by vivid nightmares, images of the spectral figure, its eyes blazing with an infernal light, drifting through the endless darkness of the ocean. In every flash of lightning, I could see the ghostly faces of the lost, their expressions a grim reminder of the curse that had befallen us. The maelstrom had not only claimed our vessel's power, it had claimed a part of our very souls. In the aftermath, whispers began to circulate among the survivors. They spoke of a curse, an ancient, malevolent force that dwelled within the heart of the storm, waiting to unleash its fury on any who dared to cross its path. Some claimed that the spectral figure was the vessel of that curse, a living embodiment of the ocean's eternal sorrow and rage. I tried to find solace in rationality, to explain away the inexplicable events as the fevered imaginings of terrified men. But deep down, I knew the truth. The sea had shown us its darkest face, and we had been forever marked by its curse. I could no longer gaze upon the ocean without feeling a chill of dread, as if unseen eyes were constantly watching, waiting for the moment to drag me back into that endless, tormenting abyss. Now, years later, I pen these words in a desperate attempt to unburden my soul, a warning to any who might venture into the heart of the tempest. The Maelstrom's curse is not a mere legend. It is a palpable, malevolent force that resides in the depths, a relentless specter of doom that hungers for the souls of the unwary. I still hear the ghostly echoes of that cursed night, the wail of the storm, the haunting chorus of the lost, and the burning, malevolent gaze of that spectral figure. And every time I close my eyes, I see the endless, merciless sea, a living nightmare from which there is no escape.